Do, do, do.
Well, it looks like we are live streaming. We have connected again. Not sure, but it says we're live on Facebook. So we're going to go ahead.
Okay, we'll do that. I don't know
So
how.
everyone, thank you so much for coming again to another Give Back Facebook Lives in the series. And, going through some of the real challenging times that we've had over the last couple of months here in the United States, one of the things that has really been on my mind and what I've been seeing in the community is the challenges with relationships. And one of my clients is David Pisarra. He's an attorney in Los Angeles, actually in not Newport, but you're in.
I wish. I don't make enough money for Newport.
But he's a stone's throw from a beach that he cannot go to at the moment.
That's true.
Anyway, he really specializes in divorce and relationships on that side. And I think sometimes attorneys can get a bad rap because they're just wanting a divorce so they can, quote, make money. But David is one of those unique individuals that really values the relationship more than having the relationship destroyed, along with the family, and if there's children, assets, whatever it may be. And so I've asked him to come on and really address this fact. So, David, thank you for being with us.
Hey, my pleasure, Gary. Anything for you.
Well, be careful with that. I get send all kinds of requests over. But,
Yeah.
right now, in your practice, because I know that you deal not only in California, but you've had relationships around the country. What have you been seeing as the biggest challenge that people have had with the quarantine, and all of a sudden they're being kind of stuck with people in the house that they're not used to being around all the time?
It's really interesting. And let me just start by saying thank you for having me on. It's a great opportunity to give back to your community, and I really appreciate that. But being in quarantine is kind of like being in a pressure cooker. And what we're seeing is that everything that's good in a relationship and everything that's bad in a relationship is kind of being enhanced.
Yeah.
It's sort of like miracle grow on everything. So there's some relationships that are really flowering, and you see people coming back together because they're forced to connect again in ways that they haven't had to previously, because it's easy to get distracted with the kids and the career and my career and their career and everything that's going on. But now when you're all in this little pressure cooker, you have to look at, like, why did I really like this person? And so what's happening is some relationships are coming back together, but also some people are taking the pressure and it's fracturing them, because the fractures in the relationship were, I was distracted, and it was easy for me to ignore the fact that, like, oh, they're drinking too much. Oh, I don't really like them. Oh, they put on 100 pounds. So now we're having to actually, like, deal with, like, what's the reality of our relationship and what do we really want? So,
when Sharon and I were in college, we had to go through the personality tests and everything to see if we were compatible. And it said we weren't, but we got married anyway. And after 45 years, I guess we had something figured out. But I remember the person giving the test said something that, as newlyweds, the first 6 months, you just love that person so much, you just want to eat them up. The second 6 months, you wish you had.
yeah.
And I'm wondering if that is somewhat of the case now, because we've gotten into our routines, that we have gone to work, we have traveled. If you're not used to being around each other, opposites do attract. So some people need more space than others. Is that what you're describing? Is that the little irritants that were there throughout their marriage or their relationship all of a sudden have been enlarged, if you will, because of the confinement of the space, and now you're really paying attention and you can't ignore the little things anymore?
Absolutely, because one of the things is, the sand in the relationship is what causes the problem. It's not the giant boulder frequently. It's those little things that just build up. Like the fact, like, you never put the dishes in the dishwasher, you just put them next to the sink. It's another 3 seconds, just put it in the dishwasher. But those habits that normally you just sort of like gloss over because you got so many other things going on, it's like, okay, I've got to get off to soccer practice. I got to pick up Julie from Girl Scouts, and then I got to get Susie over to ballet practice, and Bobby's got volleyball. I don't have time to argue about putting the dishes in the dishwasher.
Well, and then you add the pressure right now for many people of the financial uncertainty that they're finding themselves in.
Oh, and that's a whole other piece of this whole thing is the money side of how are we going to make it through. Yeah.
So why do people get so frustrated with relationships and, just want to throw in the towel? They've invested a number of years, a lot of money. They know it's going to be painful to separate. And what do they say? It takes $20,000 to get married and $20,000 to get a divorce. And that's if you don't have anything. And, or depending on what state you live in. So what do you see as the thing that really is the catalyst that people just really do say, enough is enough, I'm out of here, I just want it over?
A lot of times we're seeing that people get frustrated and they let those little things build up, and then they have this image like, oh, I can do better. In America, we've always got bigger, better, richer. And the reality is maybe, but frequently not. Frequently, the reality is we have in the world of relationship calculus and the relationship auction market of being out in the dating world, you've probably got what you're going to get in reality. Few people are going to go from, not that great looking and mediocre income to like, oh, you married a Kardashian. I don't know. Maybe not.
I don't know that I want that either, but there's that old adage that the grass is greener on the other side. And
Absolutely.
It's the sunlight that shades that green. When you get there, it really isn't.
Exactly.
So it's, so is it just the uncertain or the what's the word I'm wanting? They get so used to someone that they're bored. Is that what you're saying?
There's a little bit of the boredom factor on the one hand. There's certainly the Facebook factor and the memories of how much I was in love with that person in high school. And now that we're discovering each other again, and our current spouses are kind of like old hat. It's yesterday's stew. But the Facebook high school love that's back in our life, and we're both in bad marriages, and suddenly we have somebody to confide in. It sparks that first 6 months of the honeymoon period of the relationship when you're just so in love. And people are like, they're a little bit nostalgic. They're a little bit like, oh, I'm sick and tired of what I've got because they're not exciting enough anymore. And there's this new thing of my old love who I've always loved, they've always known me. So we've got a lot of factors going on. And unfortunately, people forget that, at the end of the day, when you're dealing with somebody, they're going to take their dirty socks off and throw them towards the hamper, and it might or might not make it in.
Right.
Whether it's this husband or this wife or that wife, at the end of the day, everybody's pretty much doing the same stuff.
So really what you're talking about is burnout in some way, correct? It's really that, they don't see that there's other options. And so they just throw their hands up and says, okay, for me, the old analogy of the Etch-a-Sketch, that little thing you can write on with a little knobs and then you turn it upside down, shake it, and It's a clean slate. And so what are you seeing as, the major elements of burnout? What do people need to look for beforehand? Maybe not where it's already gone to, I'm done, I'm out of here, let's get our attorneys involved. But what could they be looking for that says we need to pay attention? Maybe we're on a road we really don't want to be on.
Well, it's the little things, like when was the last time you guys went out on a date? A lot of times people get in these routines and they forget that the relationship itself actually has to be nurtured. You have to invest time and effort into actually being in the relationship. It's not just, oh, we have an apartment together and we're putting both of our paychecks in the same checking account. There's more to a relationship than that. You have to actually continue to have things in common to talk about, common experiences, but also you have to have independent experiences. People generally when they get too into a relationship and they look solely for the other person to be their everything, that's a generally bad sign. I see it a lot. A lot of times men come into my office and I say, so who are your friends? And they're like, well, they're all her friends. Okay. Well, you don't have any of your own friends? No. Like,
Wow.
that's a really bad sign, because you've become enmeshed in the other person's life to the point where, what are you going to talk about? If you're not having independent experiences to come back and share in the relationship, it's going to get boring. That's why long-term relationships, people generally have a strong internal connection in the relationship, but they also have strong external friendships that allow for things to come back in the relationship, so it still gets invigorated and refreshed about what are we talking about. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. And so what you've described to me is people lose their identity. They lose their uniqueness in the relationship, so does it matter anymore?
Oh, frequently that happens. And whether that's a man or a woman, they frequently lose their identity and become, it is an us. It's not a me and she. And that's not healthy.
Again, opposites attract many times. And what you were describing, I'm thinking about Sharon, my wife, and her idea of a fun weekend. I would, bite my tongue, a fulfilling weekend, because if she's having fun, it doesn't mean as much, and is quilting. And if the boys and I, if we're not going fast and going boom, it's not worthwhile doing. And so what we had to learn was how to support our differences, and then do what you just said, is to be able to share those experiences, not necessarily, at the same time during the event, but to be able to come back and have that connection and enjoy the experience in a secondhand manner, supporting that partner.
Exactly. When you go off and you do your, like, I'm going to go fly a plane thing, or you've got a new BMW and you're flying down the freeway, that allows you to then come back and be excited about your life and the things that you do, and you've got things to talk about. But if you're not doing what you want to do, and if all she's doing is, not the things that she wants to do, but she's biting her tongue while she's on some plane ride with you that she doesn't really want to be on, that's going to breed a resentment that's going to grow.
Well, and that's where my mind just went. I remember for Mother's Day one time, Sharon wanted the boys and I to take her to a quilting convention. And so we did. And she went off doing her thing, just enjoying the thing. And in 10 minutes, the organizers of the event came to the boys and I and kicked us out of the facility. We literally got kicked out. And what did we do? And Sharon goes, never again. When I flew the P-51, Sharon said, have a great time. You're going to enjoy it. I don't want the noise. I'll watch the videos after you get home. And she did. And she so supports me in that. And so it wasn't that I discounted what she enjoys, or she didn't discount me, but I think this is a learned trait that we have to learn how to really connect what is important to that other person, what's valuable to them. And what I'm hearing you say is that if we don't take the time to find that out, now we're wandering around. And, I've always said, if I don't fix the problem with Sharon, if we ever were to get a divorce, I'd have to fix the problem with the next person.
Right. But, you also said something really interesting at the very beginning of this. And that was that you guys went and did personality tests, which means that you were thinking about this from the very beginning of what's the long-term mean. From the very beginning, this was a lifetime commitment for you two.
Yep.
Neither of you had the escape hatch. And that's the other thing I see a lot of, is everybody's got, not everybody, many people have the escape hatch mentality. Like, well, there's the starter marriage, and then I'll get to the real one. I can always get out of this one. And it's like, well, if that's always your attitude going into it, the little things that you would work through, you don't really need to work through, because you'll just use that as the excuse to leave.
I've over the years, I've been starting to say I feel like such a failure because I'm such a competitive person that all of my friends, or many of my friends from high school, on their second and third marriage, and I'm still on my first. And
I'll tell you how to fix that.
Sharon heard
I
me
can
say
make that feeling go away, Gary.
And she goes, I can help you with that one. It's like,
I'll make that feeling go away real quick. Just write me a check for $250,000. We'll call it 2 divorces. You're good.
It's all good. Yeah, it's so when we really look at this, what are the things that well, I'm going to ask you to really give some 3 tangible items here in a minute that are allowing people to take what we've talked about today and actually put it like what I call marching orders, something that they can use and implement in their relationships. And the interesting thing is this is relationships, whether there's a piece of paper in my mind that says you're married or not, because a lot of people are in long-term relationships and it's the same thing. I mean, a piece of paper to me doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It's about the commitment, the integrity. And so, but let's shift gears for just a second. Every time someone comes on to the Give Back program in the series, I've asked them to bring something of value that they're going to give away to you. And we want this to be highly valuable. This is not a bait and switch. There is no sales involved. I am asking my guests to purely give back and to have a connection and to be a resource. So, David, what are you going to be sharing with our community?
Sure. So I have 4 books, and anybody who wants a PDF of them, feel free to just shoot me an email, david@mensfamilylaw.com, and they can get any of my books for free. That's the PDF of A Man's Guide to Domestic Violence, A Man's Guide to Child Custody, A Man's Guide to Divorce Strategy, and the book that everybody is most curious about is What About Wally? How to Co-Parent a Pet with Your Ex. So when you break up with somebody, how do you take care of the dog? That's the one that people love the most.
It's always interesting. It always comes down to the most important element in the family, and a lot of times it is the animals. So I want to make it clear, though, that you do work with men in divorce, but your books can be applicable as far as the information to the wives, the women, the females in the relationships as well. Isn't that true? Or
Oh, absolutely, because so much of it is it's the strategy going into it of what's really happening in the relationship. Frequently people are in these relationships and they get stuck and they don't know how to handle it going forward. And these are very simple books. They're very straightforward. They're written from a very clean perspective of here's the basics you need to know. Nobody needs to know the intricacies of Watts Epstein credits, how you handle the real estate. Forget it. That's why you're hiring a lawyer. What you need to know is how do we deal with the important stuff? And
which is most of the time the emotional.
Right.
So I just didn't want the ladies that are watching us that are saying, well, this is all a male gift. It isn't. It's really about each individual going through the similar process of a possible divorce or a divorce itself.
Absolutely.
And so thank you. I really appreciate you doing that because
Pleasure.
You've been around doing this a long time. You've seen the hurts, the pains, and sometimes the benefits. I'm for one. Yes, I've been married a very long time. I think back to my parents. I really wish they had gotten a divorce because it was ugly up until they both passed away, and it was like a wasted life. So I don't see it as one way or the other, but so much of the time is divorce seems like the easiest way out and the only way out. And David really brings to the table options, and that's really what I want people to look at. And by the way, if you're in partnership in a business, it's a marriage. So maybe you might want to pick up his books to be able to learn how to negotiate the differences and the strengths and the weaknesses within the partnership if you find yourself in a business relationship like that. So, David, I'm going to switch gears on you again.
Okay.
3 things. What would you like people to know or to do after this call? What are the 3 things that you think would be most beneficial?
Okay. Number 1, address the elephant in the room. Frequently, people are ignoring what's really going on, and they're not really talking about the problem. So if you're spending a lot of time in quarantine, one-on-one time with each other, and there's little things that are bothering you, like the other person's not putting the dishes in the dishwasher, have the conversation. Don't let it fester. You know, frequently when people come to me, the thing is not the thing. You know, they're not really getting divorced because, oh, I don't like them anymore. It's like, well, what's really behind that? So we're not actually surfacing the real problems. And if you want to survive quarantine with your marriage intact, surface the problems. Talk about what's really going on. Secondly, I think the thing is make time for personal space. Get out. Go for a walk. Go for a bike ride. Go for a drive if you have to. Just spend some personal time to get away from the relationship so that everybody has an opportunity to decompress, to let those things that are bothering them kind of just go down and then come back and have a conversation. And lastly, don't forget you actually have to make time for the relationship. You know, daily life can get overwhelming, and if we don't take time out and remember that we have to actually focus on the person we're in a relationship with, it's real easy to forget and let the kind of weeds and termites get into the relationship, and before you know it, it's shattered. If you make time for it, and remember that there's date night, and in today's environment, maybe that means you've got to just not do the fun things that we used to do, like going out to dinner every Friday night. Maybe it's, okay, we're going to go get coffee and then go for a drive, but you've got to make time for the relationship, because otherwise, remember that there's cracks will happen, and before you know it, you're in my office, and that's not where you want to be.
So, you know, the things that I was hearing you in those three items, they're not complicated. They're not always comfortable. It may not be as easy as just saying, let's sit down and have a talk. But it's critical. I think the three things that you gave are really the three pillars that will potentially save a relationship. And at least it will uncover whether there's a relationship to be saved. Maybe that's another element of it.
Right.
You know, and it's today where there's so many uncertainties. The reason that I felt this subject was so important is that let's not create more uncertainties within the house, within the home, because now we have it external and internal, and it's just going to be not a nice place to be.
Right.
So, do you want to take a look at the Facebook thread and see if there are any questions?
I would love to. I can't seem to get it to work. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm sure it's me.
Well, I will look real quick and see if I can pick it up. Hey, Emmy, thanks for being here. Sir, there are 6 comments. We don't get to spin. Hey, there are actually no questions. There's a number of comments. Thank you all for being on, watching us today, because I really do think this is important. And if we don't have those types of challenges in our relationships, one of the things as a business coach I look for is the little signs that other people are having those challenges. And maybe we can be a resource. Let them know about David. Let them know about the books that he has that are available. You know, this is the time to help and show people that there are options, rather than just doing that knee-jerk relationship and opting out of something that could be very beneficial later on. So, David, I always end these programs with this question, or really with this inquiry. What would you like to leave everybody with today?
I want everybody to remember that this will end. We will be past this period where it's very stressful for everybody, but there will come a time when you will be back to a sense of normalcy. And don't give up a long-term relationship for a short-term stress, because it's possible to make it through this. And when we're on the far side of it, you're going to be able to look back and say, A, we made it through, and B, laugh about it.
Yeah, we're waiting for that time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
David, thank you so much. I so appreciate you, and you know, being able to share. And everyone that is watching this on the replay, please put your comments, questions into the thread down into the comment section or the Facebook Live. David is going to be continuing to monitor those questions. So just because you might not have been able to be on the live Facebook doesn't mean that David is not there to be a resource for you. And let's just continue. And if you have anybody that you would like to refer into, David, please do that as well. I don't bring anyone on these programs that I truly do not 100% believe in and trust with my own family. So this is a little more of a touchy subject, but it's so valuable. And again, David, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary. It's a pleasure being here.
So we'll talk to everybody on the next Give Back series, and have a great afternoon.